Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Monday following a great weekend as we get, poured on with rain here today in the end of November. I will say that I'm happy it's not snow, but nevertheless, not a very nice day. And you could say it wasn't a very nice day for a lot of favorites in the NFL. And I think for a lot of sports books, even they are not enjoying this NFL season because it has been anarchy and it continues to be completely chaotic, where teams that were out of a playoff position, seemingly no chance of making it, are winning. Teams that have lose 7 straight, demolished by many teams, defeat the team with the best record in the NFL in the Houston Texans. A second-year, first career start quarterback leads a game-winning drive in Chicago at Soldier Field for the Baltimore Ravens. Tyler Huntley, what happened with Lamar Jackson? An illness that was not COVID-related. That seemed fishy to me. Are the Minnesota Vikings real? Well, Kirk Cousins, you could argue, has played immaculate football this year. Do I trust him for a second? No. But a lot of storylines. The Buffalo Bills completely mollywopped yesterday by the Indianapolis Colts, who are now 6-5. So many storylines that we can dive into. And as you all know, I like to pick a theme. I like to pick a narrative from each week. And as we approach the end of week 11 tonight, where the New York Giants head to Tampa Bay to play Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, my theme this week, I mean, you could say carnage, because that's what it's been every week. The second I have an 10th of faith in a team, I lose it. Now, the Buffalo Bills, I haven't had faith in. I'm not surprised that they lost yesterday. That wasn't a surprising loss to me. Houston beating Tennessee, that surprises me. Justin Herbert balling out last night against Pittsburgh, doesn't surprise me. He's an elite quarterback. The Philadelphia Eagles, my Philadelphia Eagles, you could say, as I've been pumping that bandwagon, winning another game. Doesn't surprise me. Jalen Hurts being the number one quarterback of the future, again, doesn't surprise me. But what does surprise me is week 11, how the playoff picture is so wide open. It's week 11. That's a big chunk of the season. We are heading into December. It's American Thanksgiving on Thursday, where we'll have two matinees followed by a Sunday night football game to celebrate Turkey Day in the US of A. But you think, well, normally there's an elite team. Well, there isn't this year. There just isn't. The Green Bay Packers right in 2. They lose yesterday. I mean, you could argue the Arizona Cardinals are the most elite team in football, but yet 2 of the last 3 wins have come from their backup quarterback. And you can make the argument, well, they're fantastic because they're winning without their starter and their best wide receiver. Sure, I don't disagree with that argument. But is Kyler Murray going to be healthy? Is DeAndre Hopkins going to be healthy? They head into their bye week, but missing 3 straight games, and every week they are game time decisions in air quotes before the game. They never play. So how are they going to feel come January? Can they get that first round bye? I think it's imperative for this team, just like it is for the Tennessee Titans, to get that bye in the AFC. But if we look at the playoff picture in both conferences, we're going to go through it here today because it's honestly riveting to me, and I love it. I think I've heard this narrative, well, you need a great team. Like for years, the Golden State Warriors in basketball, the New England Patriots, dynasty-like teams. I've never been a fan of that. I like when things are different year in, year out. Seeing the same team win, it gets boring for me. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning are still a great team in the NHL. Tell you what, they're not as good as the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers, the best team in hockey, and they were my pick before to win the cup, and they remain it now. But in the NFL, if you're a New England Patriots fan, you feel pretty good. But Do you feel over the hill? Do you feel super confident you're going to win the Super Bowl? No. Nobody should feel overly confident that they can win a Super Bowl. Well, let's go. We'll touch on that. So we look at this NFC. We'll start with the NFC. Arizona 9-2 beat Seattle yesterday in Seattle. First of all, I think that's an impressive win. They go to Seattle, they get the win. They only allow 13 points. That's the most impressive point of the day. Their pass rush, the guys in the back end, they played well. They're without J.J. Watt, Budda Baker making big plays. But I could also say Russell Wilson has been putrid since his time, since recovering from his injury, since having surgery. Russell Wilson has been pretty pathetic. And I like Russell Wilson, but I call a spade a spade. When you stink, you stink. And he throws 14 for 26, 207 yesterday. Okay. They're not running the ball more than they're passing it yesterday, and they got nothing done there. I look at Seattle's game plan. The first play of the game, they run the ball. Rashawn Penny, who's coming back from a long-term injury, breaks it off for 18 yards. He had one more carry the rest of the game for 1 yard. Why was he not given the ball more? Why did he only get 2 carries? Alex Collins, okay, great, 10 for 36. It's a 3-yard average. That's garbage. They start the game running the football in their first drive. I'm like, okay, great first play. You got some momentum. 3-and-out. Where they just run 3 bogus, they try a bootleg, pass rush, gets to Russell Wilson, then he dumps it off, going nowhere. Seattle has had a fundamental error at their offensive philosophy. My favorite teams, and the teams that I think, I know what they win, are teams that can run the football effectively. Tom Brady is one of the greatest football players ever. Again, most people would say he's the greatest quarterback. I rate the best football player. You have to be a great athlete. I'm a better athlete than Tom Brady. So I'm not, okay, I won't say that. But Jerry Rice to me is a better football player than Tom Brady, as is Lawrence Taylor, but that's not the conversation today. But what did he have? He had a top 3 scoring defense in every Super Bowl he won. He had a top 5 defense in every Super Bowl he won when it comes to just total defense. And what did he have? He had a strong running game. Because when you have a strong running game, you can establish play action. And that's how you win. Look at the Indianapolis Colts. First couple weeks of the season, what do? They go to Carson Wentz. He's throwing it 40 times a game. You're not winning. You have a beast in Johnathan Taylor. Give him the football. But Seattle they just have a bad offensive philosophy. I look at Pete Carroll. I look at their OC. Just isn't there. DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson should be better. They don't have a connection. They don't. He has one with Tyler Lockett. He always has. But in his 2 games since coming back, Russell Wilson has thrown for under 250 yards in both games, and he has not thrown a touchdown pass. That's a problem. But Arizona, 9-2, they get the win. Colt McCoy throws for 328. And what I love from Colt, this was a big, Cliff Kingsbury said the most important acquisition of the offseason for these Arizona Cardinals was not J.J. Watt. It was not A.J. Green. It was not Chandler Jones coming back from injury. It was getting Colt McCoy. And he's being proven right. Because Colt McCoy has been an elite backup quarterback. But when you need a guy to step in, I'd pick Colt McCoy over a Mike Glennon or a Jacoby Brissett in Miami. Guys, Joe Flacco, Chase Daniel, whomever. 35 or 44, 328, does not turn the ball over, the most important thing of the day. Throws for 2 touchdown passes, both to Zach Ertz, who was acquired at the trade deadline. Another good move by Steve Keim. And you look, James Conner continues to score touchdowns. Gets a rushing touchdown. Had 5 catches for 37 yards. This team is chugging along. Their defense is phenomenal. So Cardinals, great in the number one spot, followed by Green Bay, who lose to the Vikings. Now, the Green Bay Packers, and I was tough on Aaron Rodgers through the whole COVID scenario. And maybe some of my listeners, you're pro Aaron Rodgers, which is fine. We can have a difference of opinion there. However, I love Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the most entertaining quarterbacks to watch. However, what I don't like is that after the game, they lose. He's now coming out saying he has a turf toe injury, which is probably true. But we didn't hear a whole lot about this toe injury before the game. Will we have heard a lot about it if they won? He comes up with a lot of excuses, and I don't like that. You lost. Was this a loss on you? No, I think this was Aaron Rodgers' best game of the season. I mean, if you look at his numbers, and they're still a great team. They're 8-3. He goes 23 for 33, 385, and 4 tubs. It's a pretty good day. They didn't run the ball that effectively. They are missing Aaron Jones, in my opinion. But he finds Davante Adams for 2 touchdowns, Valdez-Scantling for another, and Decorah, the new tight end that they're incorporating a little bit for a touchdown as well. He plays great. First half, he was a bit quiet. But the second half, he couldn't have played better. I mean, the Vikings go on a touchdown drive, and then who answers right away? Aaron Rodgers just throws a dart to Valdez-Scantling, who is just running an up and go in the middle of the field. No safety help. He's gone. But then you get Kirk Cousins, is a fascinating figure to me, because let's look at Kirk Cousins. He's got 2,775 yards passing this year, 21 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That is elite. And he has the 106.3 QBR. And just for, to keep this in perspective, his quarterback rating is 3rd in the NFL, behind only Kyler Murray and Aaron Rodgers. It's ahead of Tom Brady. It's ahead of Matthew Stafford. It's ahead of Dak Prescott. He's balling. I've never seen him play better. But he threw up. The Packers should have won this game. 2:02 left. He throws a ball in the air. It was picked right in the arms of Darnell Savage. He couldn't control it going to the ground. What happens? They go down the field, and they get a touchdown on the drive. That's all she wrote. But you look at Kirk Cousins, this was a quarterback battle. He goes 24 for 35, 341, 3 tubs. And what's different about the Vikings this year? Well, I think they've had better defenses in years past. And Patrick Peterson is a good corner, but he isn't the all-pro that he was in Arizona for years. Bashaw Breeland's on his 4th team. He's playing good corner, but again, to me, Kirk Cousins is playing at a different level. They have Dalvin Cook, who I love. He's great out of the backfield. He's great. He's great at every different situation. But another luxury that the Minnesota Vikings have is they have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. And it's hard to argue that they don't have the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, because I think Kelsey and Hill are better than these two, but Kelsey's a tight end. That's a different category. That's not a wide receiver. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, they're very good, but consistency is everything. And you look at Justin Jefferson, 8 catches, $169, 2 touchdowns yesterday. Should have had 3 touchdowns if he didn't celebrate prematurely and got tackled at the 1. Thielen has led the NFL in receiving touchdowns twice. That's while Davante Adams has been in the league. And looking at the just receiving touchdowns this year, Adam Thielen's got 8. That's tied for 3rd. These guys, Justin Jefferson has 6. These guys are playing phenomenal. And they come up with plays when they need to. that first half really cost Green Bay the game because they scored a lot of points in the second half. They came out and attacked. They were down 16-10 at the half. Then they were down 24-10 before they got the ball. And I thought in the first half, the pass rush got to Aaron Rodgers. He had to throw the ball away a few times where he had to settle for field goals. And another reason they lose this game is Mason Crosby missed another field goal. He's 8 for 16 since starting 9 for 9. He's a flat out liability. He used to be, no doubt about it. And if there wasn't so many incompetent kickers, you could bring in a guy for a workout, but who the hell are you going to bring in? Field goal kicking is worse than it ever has been. I hate field goal kicking. And if I'm a team, I'm going for it. If it's fourth and 5 with Aaron Rodgers, I'm going for it. If the field goal, he missed a 32-yard field goal. 32 yards. That's an extra point. But Minnesota wins the division game. Huge win. Kudos to them because that's how you get in the conversation of being a playoff team. And not only that, in the NFC, they leap to the 6th seed because you want to talk about carnage. You have 6, you got Minnesota, New Orleans, San Francisco, all at 5-5. So all tied at 5-5. Below them, the Philadelphia Eagles 5-6, the Carolina Panthers 5-6, Washington Football Team 4-6, the Atlanta Falcons 4-6, New York Giants 3-6 have the opportunity to be 4-6 tonight if they can upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who they are a double-digit underdog. But I love this because the Cowboys are going to be fine. Likely the Bucs, even though the Bucs do play Green Bay this coming weekend in Lambeau Field. But to me, yesterday, San Francisco, they go to Jacksonville. Jimmy Garoppolo plays another great game, in my opinion. He only threw 22 passes for $176. That's an 8-yard average, but he threw 2 touchdowns. Most important thing of the day, that's 2 straight games he did not turn the ball over. When you have a strong running attack, when you play good defense, which they did against the Rams, you create some turnovers, you're going to win more often than you're going to lose. And he's not a great quarterback, but he's efficient. And you look, Kittle had 4 catches. Ayuk, he didn't do much. But Deebo Samuel ran 8 times for 79 yards. Deebo Samuel only had 1 catch in this game. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He had 1 catch, but 8 rushes. They didn't have Elijah Mitchell. But guess what? They still won. They still found ways to be efficient. Trey Sermon ran the ball 10 times. They ran the ball 32 times yesterday to 22 rushes. That is their. And who plays next week? San Francisco and Minnesota. 2 5-5 teams. This is a huge game, obviously. Then New Orleans. They've lost 3 in a row, but they're still in a playoff hunt. None of these teams are that good. I think Minnesota's the best of the bunch, but they got the Bills coming off a loss. But Trevor Siemian's not been that great. He's turned the ball over. He throws 2 interceptions this week. He throws a couple touchdown passes, rushes for another, but he hasn't been great for this team. And they're 5-5. You look at New Orleans' schedule coming up. It's not easy for them because, like I said, they played the Bills on Thursday night to cap off Thanksgiving. Then they play the Cowboys. Again, not an easy game. Then they go to the Jets. That should be a win. Then the Saints have at the Bucs. The Bucs will be looking for revenge after they got really smoked in their last meeting. They play the Dolphins on Monday night. That's a winnable game, very much so. Then they finish with the Panthers and Falcons. They don't have an easy schedule. Could they still make the playoffs? Yes, but it's this carnage. Trevor Siemian isn't that good. Their defense is being exposed. Yesterday, my guy, and I'll repeat, my guy, Jalen Hurts. And not every quarterback is going to be the same. And what did Jalen Hurts do yesterday? He only threw for 147 yards, which isn't great. I'll fully admit that. But what did he do? He ran the ball 18 times, which is too much. I will say that. It is too much for a quarterback. But he took what the defense gave him, ran the ball 18 times for 69 yards and 3 touchdowns. 3 rushing touchdowns yesterday from Jalen Hurts. And what does Philly do now? What are they doing now that they didn't do in the Carson Wentz era? I'll honestly say that. They have a running game. They ran the ball a lot yesterday. You look 28, 38. They ran the ball 50 times yesterday. Miles Sanders ran 16 times for 94 yards. Jordan Howard, who's a really good story. Jordan Howard was a fourth round draft pick of the Philadelphia Eagles. Played with them for a number of years, made a Pro Bowl, was on the Super Bowl roster, but was injured like Carson Wentz. But he was just he's a downhill runner. He's a power back. They drafted Miles Sanders, which took him out of the rotation. Miles Sanders, playing at Penn State, was more of the catch the ball in the backfield, more of the modern tailback. And, you had Jordan Howard, who's a physical guy. But injuries, led to Philly parting ways. So he goes to Chicago, and he had mixed results there, had some good games, but they decided to move on. They got David Montgomery. He was on the practice squad for a while, but they let him go. Then this year, you got injuries on Philly. They signed him to the practice squad, and he's been, since being elevated, this guy's playing great. I mean, 10 times for 63 yards, 6-yard average, that'll work. And I just think this team is has so many weapons. You run the ball. Jalen Hurts is a threat to run. And he's also got 2 guys he's got great connection with. Dallas Goedert, who they locked up, the tight end this week, and Devontae Smith is just phenomenal. So Philly is still, to me, they're going to make the playoffs. I look at Minnesota, San Francisco play each other. I think New Orleans is going to fade down the stretch. Philly, they don't, they still have to go on their bye, but they play at the Giants this weekend. Got to win that game. I think they will. Even though it's a road game, I think they'll win. Then they go to the Jets. Another game, you got to win, but I think they will. Then they have their bye. They have the last bye of the season, the last week. There is bye weeks. So they play 2 games that they should win. Then they come back with the Washington football team. Not an easy game, but I think Philly can win it. Then they go and they play the Giants again at home. Win, in my opinion. Eagles then go to Washington. Not an easy game, but again, it's a game that's a division game. You can win it, and they close at home against the Cowboys. You got to hope the Cowboys are playing for nothing at that point, but the rest of their games are all winnable. I'm not saying they're going to win everyone, but it's better feeling say we have a winnable game here. The Jets don't have many winnable games. Every time, yesterday was one of the winnable games against Miami. They lost. And then below them, Carolina and Washington. Well, Washington wins against Carolina yesterday. Taylor Heineke's played fantastic football the last 2 games. This is what we saw in the playoffs, where he's a battler. He only threw for 206, but he had 2 touchdowns, efficient. Antonio Gibson ran the ball effectively. Again, look at teams running the ball. They're winning. That's how you win. Terry McLaurin had over 100 yards receiving. DeAndre Carter had another touchdown reception, but Heineke makes big plays at big moments. He also can run the ball for first downs. He's not the most athletic guy. They got Seattle on Monday Night Football this week. So big game for Washington. But, Carolina loses another game. They go to play Miami. Minnesota's the best team out of this bunch. I think Minnesota, even though they got to play Green Bay again, I think they will make the playoffs because I like their team the most. I think you got Danielle Hunter. He's a great pass rusher. Kirk Cousins, and I have zero faith in Kirk Cousins, but I trust this team to come together and make the playoffs. So I pencil them in at this point with little confidence. After that, I look at New Orleans. I just think they have a tough schedule. These next 2 weeks are huge because they play Thursday, then they play the following Thursday. So they don't get that, 10 days rest after a Thursday night game. You got to play a week later. And even though the next two games are both at home, I think the Bills are going to be pissed off because they were embarrassed yesterday, which we'll get to. But I can see the Bills coming out with an effort that is much better than they came out with yesterday. And I would expect that they come out and play a good football game. And then they play the Cowboys. Cowboys, let's talk about the Cowboys. They that was a really bad performance yesterday from the Dallas Cowboys in Arrowhead playing the Kansas City Chiefs. First off, I don't think the Chiefs played that well, quite frankly. I think the Chiefs should have ran the ball more. You saw their first drive. The Chiefs ran the football, and I was shocked. But they had 62 rushing yards on their first possession, and I said, okay, fantastic. This is exactly what you want to see. They had 126 for the game, which is really good for the Chiefs. Dallas only had 82. So kudos to the Chiefs but they should have ran the ball more. But you look at it, Mahomes had 2 turnovers, and Cowboys couldn't capitalize. They didn't get points. They didn't get a touchdown on either. They had 3 field goals for the game. They didn't have a touchdown. Dak Prescott also turned the ball over twice. That can't happen. But also, they ran the ball 16 times. That's not enough. That's not enough. And to me, yesterday, they went into a game where they looked defeated from jump because their first drive was lifeless, a 3-and-out. And then they run the ball down the throat. The Chiefs on the first drive, like I said, had 62 rushing yards. 4 different players ran the football. Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Kelce capped it off. They ran the ball down their throat, and even though Mahomes didn't have a huge day, Kelce and Hill nearly had similar numbers, and he did turn the ball over, like I said, twice after Micah Parsons tracked him down, forced a fumble, and then there was an interception later in the game as well. But I look at this Cowboys, and we've seen 2 out of the last 3 weeks where they didn't play well. They got demolished against Denver, where people said, well, that's an anomaly, and they believed it because they played Atlanta, and they beat them by 40. But they go to Arrowhead, and that wasn't a close game. It should have been worse than 19-9 because Dallas generated nothing. It didn't get better for them with the fact that CeeDee Lamb left the game with concussion. Didn't help them that the officials were bad on both sides. But Dak Prescott couldn't generate anything. He had a really off day again. They didn't run the ball. The best thing you could say about the Dallas Cowboys is they might actually get a guy who wins an award. I think it's a shoo-in that Micah Parsons, the rookie at Penn State, is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. But I heard this last week, and I thought it was really, really premature, but I'm starting to think it really isn't. He might win Defensive Player of the Year. And I thought that was just Cowboy hype. And I think the kid's a great player, but I didn't see it. But after watching the game yesterday, he had 3 sacks, a forced fumble. It was a really strong performance from Micah Parsons. And great, yeah, but you ruined an effort from him where the Cowboys defense only allows 19 points, but Dallas can only come up with 9. And I go back to the days of a few years ago where I think it was on Sunday Night Football. Teddy Bridgewater was the quarterback in New Orleans. Drew Brees was out with broken ribs, and Cowboys came in a big favorite. They lose to New Orleans 12-9. They only give up 12 points, and you lose the football game. They played the Jets, where the Jets, I think, had 21. They lost that football game a few years ago. This is another one where the offense just looked putrid. They were taking false start penalties. They didn't look crisp. And Dak was off from the first throw of the game. And I just look at this team and say, where do we go from here? It's Jekyll and Hyde because we've seen the highs. It started off great. You lose to the Bucs by 3 points. That's a moral victory, but it also gave them confidence. But 2 of the last 3 weeks, they were just outclassed. They were outcoached, and Dan Quinn didn't have a great day against the Bucs. It wasn't his defense. It was not their fault yesterday. But the strength of this team before the season, the narrative was, well, can the defense hold up? Well, can the offense? Because against Denver, they didn't have a touchdown until the last 7 minutes where Dak was playing in garbage time, just racking up numbers and stat padding. This is a game he goes through the whole game. He doesn't get a touchdown. The whole offense does not get a touchdown. So you have a short week. Amari Cooper didn't play because he's in COVID protocol, so it's unlikely he'll be available for you against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thursday. That's a 5:30 start for Thanksgiving. And also, it's unlikely that CD Lamb will be available because he has a concussion. Maybe, but the game's 3 days from right now. He'd have to go through protocol past. I think the odds are very slim. So you don't have Amari Cooper. You don't have CD Lamb. Your running game is in shambles. Terrence Steele at right tackle is not working out. He was destroyed yesterday by Chris Jones. And Dak Prescott got sacked 5 times yesterday. 5 times. You're not going to win many games when your quarterback is on the ground. So obviously the Raider game is going to be really important because this is not a threat about making the playoffs. I mentioned how I like the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're 5-6. They are not going to catch the Dallas Cowboys. But, they were playing for a bye at one point, but now you're 7-3. You don't want to drop anymore because the Arizona Cardinals continue to find ways to win. They're on their bye week. They've played another week than you. So you have to earn another victory to stay on pace with them, stay on pace with the Green Bay Packers. You want to have as many home games as you can. And for the Dallas Cowboys, I think the number 1 seed is still a goal that they can achieve, but you need to find your game quick. And they have 2 really quick turnarounds. They play Thursday and then the following Thursday. And if they're without their 2 best receivers, where it's Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson, you have to rely on Dalton Schultz and, their tight ends this week. It's going to be a big test for this Cowboys offense. They got to hope the defense continues to play at a high level, but I'm interested to see what they have this coming Thursday against the Raiders, who are struggling as well. But the NFC is wide open. Carolina's still in there. They are 5-6. Could they find it? You got Washington, who has Seattle coming up. I think they don't have a terrible schedule. They got some division games that you could think that they could win. So the NFC, the playoff picture when it comes to the 6-7 seeds, who the hell knows who's going to take those slots and how that's all going to shake out by the end of the season. But then that brings us to the NFC. To the AFC, where yesterday was it's strange again. And the playoff picture continues to get more and more intriguing in the AFC. And I'm going to start with the team that's currently in 3rd place and the team that's currently in 7th place, occupying the final playoff spot. And yesterday was a flat-out embarrassment by the Buffalo Bills. They are now 7th in the AFC. They occupy the final playoff spot, meaning they'd have to go to Baltimore if the playoffs started today. And who the hell knows how that game will go, but they're 6-4. This is not how they envisioned their season starting. And yesterday was I call it a mollywop because they were destroyed from snap 1. And there was nothing yesterday that would make me encouraged from the Buffalo Bills. Carson Wentz threw for 106 yards yesterday. He threw the ball 20 times. But if you throw the ball 20 times for 106, that is basically meaning you're Mac Jones, but even more Mac Jones. I mean, you are dink, dunk, Jack Doyle, Johnathan Taylor. See, the leading receiver had 30 yards, Jack Doyle. That is what happened yesterday. So that's just the quarterback stats to start. But what did the Buffalo Bills, and I said this for the line of scrimmage would decide this game. Oh, it did. And who won that battle? Oh, that would be the Indianapolis Colts. Ryan Kelly, Mark Lozinski, Eric Fisher, Quentin Nelson dominated Mario Addison, Ed Oliver. That defensive line, just the great defense of Buffalo was ram-rotted yesterday. Because every quarterback has been talked about being MVP at one point. And I'm worried for this player because my guy, Dan Orlovsky, said he was the MVP today. And he's the curse because every week after that, the player stinks. And the Colts do play a team that next week that is really good at stopping the run. But nevertheless, yesterday, Johnathan Taylor had 5 touchdowns. That is the most in franchise history. 5 touchdowns, 4 on the ground, 1 through the air. Johnathan Taylor is in a league where he is with Derrick Henry. He's always been in the shadow of Derrick Henry. But Derrick Henry's hurt. That's not good for the NFL. But also, Johnathan Taylor is getting a showcase that he is, I'm not saying he's just as elite, but he's damn near close. The way he breaks out of cuts, his speed. And it's no surprise because guess where he went to school? Oh, yeah, Wisconsin. Because the Badgers produce star RBs. That's just what they do. It is running back you. And Johnathan Taylor leads the NFL in rushing with 1,122 yards. He also leads in rushing touchdowns with 13. Johnathan Taylor is the MVP of the NFL right now. Now, do I think he'd win it in a vote? Hell no. Because he's not a quarterback. The last non-quarterback to win the MVP was Adrian Peterson in 2012. And he was, I believe, 12 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's record for most rushing yards in one single season. But you play the Buffalo Bills, who had the number 1 ranked defense coming into this game. Number 1. You go for $185 and 5 tubs. That means more than doing that against a Houston or doing that against a Jets. This means you're going against very competent players. You're going against a Matt Milano. You're going against an A.J. Klein and Ed Oliver, who is a first-round pick. Against Tre'Davious White, a first-round pick. These guys are ballers, and you smash them in the mouth. Down after down after down. He ran the ball 32 times. 32. It was just incredible. 32 times. Nakeem Hines, Carson Wentz, their other backs barely touched the ball. This game was over at halftime. If I go back to the halftime score in my notes here, 24-7 Indy at the half. They win the game 41-15. I don't know what to say about this guy. He's only in his second season. But, you know, the talk was, well, if Derrick Henry hadn't gotten hurt, he'd be right in the MVP discussion, which I totally agreed with because every quarterback's had 1 or 2 bad games. And, you know, this past week, I heard Dak Prescott was the lead in the MVP. Okay. He stunk it up yesterday. Stunk it up. And he also stunk it up against the Denver Broncos. 2 really, really bad games. Tom Brady's lost 2 in a row. He was my pick before the season. I still think he's very close. I think he'd be number 2 likely. Kirk Cousins got to get some love. Maybe he doesn't win enough games. Not going to win his division. But we saw in baseball last week, the MVP of the AL and National League both did not make the playoffs. For that matter, the 3 players nominated in the AL and NL weren't in the playoffs. Marcus Semien, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Shohei Ohtani didn't make the playoffs. Bryce Harper, Fernando Tatis Jr. III didn't make the playoffs. none of these players made the postseason, but yet they're nominated for the MVP. Cy Young, Robbie Ray did not make the playoffs with the Blue Jays. Colin Burns did for Milwaukee, but he's the only guy that won these major awards. It's crazy, but things can change. And to me, Indianapolis is 9th right now. They are 6-5. They trail behind Cincinnati and Los Angeles and Buffalo and Pittsburgh, who are 5-0-1. But Indianapolis is a really good team to me. And what I like about them is what I said all week. They are at their best when Carson Wentz is not the focal point of the offense. Carson Wentz is a lot like Baker Mayfield to me. He is a competent to good quarterback, but he needs the requisite weapons around him, meaning he needs a strong running attack. He needs a good defense, which the Colts have. And then when you have that strong running attack, what do you use off of it? You use play action. You use bootlegs. You use crossers across the middle of the field. Easy throws where the game is not in your quarterback's hands. And maybe that won't win you a Super Bowl, but I do think it leads to you having success. But the Colts have a tough schedule. Coming up, they play the Bucs next weekend at home. Not an easy game for them. You know, that's a tough matchup. Obviously, the Bucs are one of the best teams in football. Then they go to Houston. They should be able to win that game, but we saw what happened to their division rivals this week in Tennessee. So 2 games they can win. Then they play the Patriots at home. Really interesting game because I think the teams are, again, very similarly built. Then they go to Arizona, tough matchup, play the Raiders at home, and then they finish with with Jacksonville. So they don't have an easy schedule. But do I think they're a good team? Yeah. I think I look at the AFC and I think they're as good as anybody. I think they're as good as they've lost to Tennessee twice this year, but Tennessee had Derrick Henry in both those games. They're as good as Tennessee. Baltimore 7-3. We'll get to Tyler Huntley. But I mean, is Lamar Jackson going to play? I don't trust Baltimore whatsoever. New England, I think New England's likely the best team in the AFC, but they have a rookie quarterback. Yeah, they have one of the greatest coaches ever. But again, Kansas City, I think you got to probably have the most faith in for me. I'll change that from New England because I've seen them go to Super Bowls. I've seen them be in this position. Patrick Mahomes knows what it feels like to be in AFC championship games. He's played in 3. Mac Jones has not taken a playoff snap. But you look ahead of them, Cincinnati. I don't have faith in Cincinnati. They played Vegas yesterday, but Vegas is falling off a cliff. Los Angeles gets a big win last night, but they're Los Angeles. They find ways to lose. Buffalo is very flawed. Pittsburgh is just outside the playoffs, but I don't think they have a great team, quite frankly. So who knows? I think the Colts are just as good as any team in the AFC. They just got to find a way to get to the playoffs. And if they continue to play the way they are, and they have the MVP at running back, they should be able to sneak in. So for the Bills, they go to the Saints. You're now trailing the Patriots in the division. You play them twice down the stretch. You play them a week from Monday on Monday Night Football, 2 weeks from tonight. So big game there, but we'll see. Tennessee. I said all last week, it's imperative that the Tennessee Titans get the first round bye in the AFC because they don't have as much talent as other teams. Ryan Tannehill to me is as good a quarterback as Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz has Johnathan Taylor. He has Michael Pittman Jr. He has Jack Doyle. You look at Tennessee, Adrian Peterson, yeah, he's there, but he's a 36-year-old running back. He's not AP of winning the MVP. Mecole Pruitt, a hampered A.J. Brown, they're just limited when it comes to options. And yesterday he throws 4 interceptions. He tried to force the ball a lot to A.J. Brown, and they lose to the Texans. You can't lose to the Texans. You got to win that game. And you can lose to anybody in the NFL. This is just a fact if you turn the ball over. You turn the ball over, especially 5 times, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter. you can't overcome 5 turnovers. They lose they only put up 13 points against the Texans. Tyrod Taylor threw for $107, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. They didn't allow a lot, the Tennessee defense. It's really good, but Tannehill turned the ball over. And that's how you find ways to lose football games in the NFL. If you turn the ball over, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, you're going to lose. And I look at Tennessee, you're in a great position. You could have been 9-2 coming into this game. You play the Patriots next week, and then you get to your bye. But you head to New England after this loss. This is the statement game of the season upcoming for the Tennessee Titans. If you lose this game, you're going to be 8-4. And you're not going to be in first place anymore because I think you got Baltimore against Cleveland. That's a big game this week. That's on Sunday Night Football. But if New England beats you, they're 8-4. They just beat you head to head, so they're going to jump you. Kansas City 7-4. They have their bye, but it causes problems. And not only that, it puts Indianapolis, if they beat the Bucs, within a game of you for the division lead. And you need this break because maybe, just maybe, Derrick Henry can come back. It's unlikely, but you need that break just to see, well, maybe he can come back for the divisional round. At least you get another week to recuperate, to maybe Julio Jones is healthy. You get him back into the lineup, and you get a stretch run for the playoffs. The more games they play, the less likely it is that they go deep because I don't think Tennessee's not as good as the New England Patriots. Tennessee's not as good as the Kansas City Chiefs. Tennessee's not as good as the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion. They're not as good as the Indianapolis Colts. I think Cleveland could beat the Tennessee Titans, and Cleveland nearly lost to Detroit yesterday. But Tennessee's just they're lacking their alpha male, and Indy's got it in Johnathan Taylor. Both these teams in the division had elite running backs. One still has one with a quarterback who is mid-level tier when it comes to quarterback play. So Tennessee at New England, huge game. I expect New England to win because I just look at them. They're playing, you look at New England, pass yardage per game, they're 17th. That's below mid-pack. 14th in rush yards per game. Offensive yardage per game, 17th, and defensive, they're 3rd. That's how they win their football games. They're good defensively. They don't turn the ball over, and they limit mistakes. And they also got Matt Judon, and New England leads the NFL in takeaways. And fun little fact, I looked this one up this weekend. In Tom Brady's first season as a New England Patriot, first year as a starter, so that's the second season after Drew Bledsoe went down after taking that huge hit. They had the 5th ranked defense in the NFL the rest of the way, and they ultimately won the Super Bowl. They have the number 2 ranked defense right now. Bodes well. Like I said, they've never won a Super Bowl in the Belichick era or period when they didn't have a top 5 ranked defense. Well, they continues to play the way it is. I like this team a lot, and I think they can push for the Super Bowl in the AFC. Baltimore. First off with Baltimore. All week, no practice for Lamar on Wednesday. No practice for Lamar on Thursday. He returns to practice as a full participant on Friday, but then it gets announced right before the game he's out with an illness. But he's had COVID twice. I said, Jesus, is he getting it a 3rd time? No, it's a non-COVID related illness. And he can't play. And this is really puzzling to me because we've seen athletes, they get sick, they play through it. Unless you're Matt Murray, the Ottawa Senators, who, or Radim Verbata, where you break a nail, you're out for 2 weeks. But this was really strange to me because I said, okay, he's not going. So Tyler Huntley, the undrafted free agent out of Utah, and Utah had a good weekend in football, he gets the start. And wasn't the prettiest game. 26 for 36, 219, interception. But what did he do? Justin Fields gets hurt. Andy Dalton comes in, throws for 2 touchdown passes to his credit. Big strike to Marquise Goodwin, 49 yards. Darnell Mooney catches another big pass down the field. He has a good game. So it looks like Andy Dalton is going to lead his team to a victory. But Huntley goes down the field on that last drive with some help from Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray. And Devontae Freeman runs the ball in, and the Ravens win 16-13. 16-13. They sneak one away in Chicago. And just to be 7-3, it's huge because the Bears aren't a good team. You don't want to lose. You don't want to beat Tennessee losing to a Houston. Chicago stinks. But credit to Baltimore, they sneak away with a win. And they got to hope that Lamar is going to be back for Sunday night because they welcome the Cleveland Browns. And Cleveland is going to be desperate because the AFC sits like this. Fifth seeds, the Cincinnati Bengals at 6-4. They haven't made the playoffs in a long time. They're desperate. The Chargers are sitting at 6-4 as well. They're a team that is on. They played very well last night. Justin Herbert played fantastic, even though down the stretch they did get an interception, but they hold on to beat Big Ben and the Steelers. And then in seventh, it is the Buffalo Bills at 6-4. So all those teams are at 6-4. So winning every week is imperative. Pittsburgh's there at 5-4-1, followed by Indy and Cleveland at 6-5. So Cleveland's next two games are against Baltimore. They do have a bye week in between there, so they have a back-to-back against Baltimore, but there's a bye week in there. Baltimore plays another game while they're on their bye. It goes like this: Sunday Night Football, Ravens, Browns. Then the Ravens, while the Browns are on their bye week, the Ravens go to play the Steelers. So they have three straight division games. Do the Ravens. That's not an easy schedule for them. So that's their schedule coming up. But Lamar Jackson's imperative because even though it was pathetic yesterday, in my opinion, from the Cleveland Browns, who played Detroit, where Jared Goff did not play. It was Tim Boyle, his first career start. They only put up 13 points. Tim Boyle threw for 77 yards. DeAndre Swift ran for $136, but Baker Mayfield only threw for $176. He had 2 interceptions. It was an ugly day, but the escape of the victory, Nick Chubb had 2 touchdowns. But Cleveland, I said before the year, I think they're the best running team in football. They've average 156.8 rush yards per game. They're 12th in offensive yardage per game. But what can they do against Baltimore? It's not a defense that's elite. Averett can be had at corner. Again, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. They came out to play yesterday. But this is a make or break game. You're going to be 6-6 heading into a bye, but then you return to play Baltimore again. Like I said, Indy's got a tough game. Pittsburgh this week, they just come off a big loss. They go on to play this week. The Steelers have the Bengals. So a huge game again. The Bengals won the first matchup. Two teams fighting for playoff position. The Bengals are looking to make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. They go to Vegas, win yesterday. Los Angeles, they play the Broncos. So Broncos coming off a bye, who are 5-5. You go, again, it's like the NFC. It's packed because you have Buffalo 6-4, last place, followed by Pittsburgh 5-4-1, Indy 6-5, Cleveland 6-5, Vegas 5-5, and Denver 5-5. All still in the mix. Denver, you beat the Chargers. Guess what? You're both 6-5. You're right in the mix. Down the stretch, you play Kansas City twice, but who knows how that goes. It's as strange as this might sound, Miami's still in it because Miami's 4-7. Now they're a very flawed team, but Miami plays Carolina next week. Carolina is good, not great team. Cam Newton still trying to find himself, learn the offense. I think Carolina wins at Miami, but you never know. They win that game, they're 5-7. Then they go to play the New York Football Giants at home. I think they can win that game. Again, the Giants they have their games where they play elite, but do I trust them? No. Then they're on their bye week. So that would be 5-7, hypothetically. Then they play the Jets. They just beat the Jets this past weekend. They could beat the Jets again. That's 6-7. They could lose every one of these games, but I'm just running through the scenario. Then they go to New Orleans on Monday Night Football. That's a tough game. That's a tough game to win. But I don't think it's a total loss. And they finish at Tennessee, and then they play the Patriots. So it's not hardest schedule is what I'm saying. Teams have tougher schedules in the AFC. Cleveland, like I mentioned, they play Baltimore twice. They play Cincinnati again. They play Pittsburgh. Indianapolis plays the Bucks. They play the Cardinals. They other than their division games, they have a very tough schedule down the stretch. So who knows where that goes? But I said New England, it would be one of the bigger threats for me. I don't trust Baltimore yet because it's a Lamar Jackson show where they have Mark Andrews. Their running game is still with Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray, who are both running backs who are aging. They're not what they used to be. I don't have a lot of trust. Tennessee, I'd love them if they had Derrick Henry, but I think the Colts are a better version of the Tennessee Titans right now. Johnathan Taylor is the MVP of the league. They got Darius Leonard. They got Bobby Okereke at line. Their linebacking crew is elite, and I think they can play with anybody when it comes to matching up defensively against your top studs. Cincinnati, you got to prove it. I mean, you got Pittsburgh again this week. That would be another. If you beat Pittsburgh twice in the same season, you'd improve to 7-4. You put yourself in a good position. Joe Burrow played pretty well yesterday. He outplayed Derek Carr. That hasn't been hard lately. Derek Carr has fallen off a cliff, losing 3 straight games. He looks completely befuddled. Obviously, you talked about the Henry Ruggs situation earlier, but this is just incompetent. I don't know what he's doing. The Las Vegas Raiders played with no pace yesterday. They looked completely lost. They looked like they had nothing in the tank. And it was dink and dunk. It was just, they had 13 points yesterday. Derek Carr. Joe Burrow only threw for $148. I mean, I'm talking about guys who did not have huge days. Joe Mixon ran for $123. But Derek Carr, 215, but he had an interception. Also got sacked 4 times. It just wasn't happening for him. They play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Can they find some momentum and get back in this? But other than New England, Chargers still got to prove it. Buffalo, they've shown me more problems than they're worth. Josh Allen, who should be an elite quarterback, is not right now. He just isn't. He's got, over his last 5 games, he has 6 interceptions. That's not going to work. You can't, that's not going to win you many ball games. And you play New England, you're going to get crushed doing that. But the team to look out for, and I had lost a lot of faith in this team, but over the last 2 weeks, they've shown me something. Offensively, they're still trying to find themselves, because I think crushing a Vegas defense is impressive. At the same time, it's Vegas. They're Vegas. They're Oakland. They're still Oakland. The Kansas City Chiefs still have the best quarterback in football. They do. They still have, I could argue, the 2 best play callers in football in Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. They still have the most electric wide receiver in football in Tyreek Hill. They're the most sure-handed tight end, although he did have one right in his hands yesterday, bobbled, intercepted by the Cowboys. They couldn't capitalize on, in Travis Kelce. And what is even more impressive about this Chiefs team lately is their defense. Over the first couple weeks, it was a disaster. We saw in week 2, Baltimore come all the way back and beat them, largely because that defense was a sieve. They could not do anything. It was pathetic. But what have we seen lately? We've seen that defense shore itself up. Yesterday, they get 5 sacks of Dak Prescott. That's exactly what you want to see. They're starting to get turnovers. This team, they find ways to be efficient. They show up now. I look at this Chiefs team and I say, that's pretty impressive. That's really impressive, because you look at their team defense, they're getting tackles. They played fast yesterday. Snead, Tyrann Mathieu, of course, is a guy that is all over the football. But Tre'Davious Ward, Rashad Fenton is another guy that I really noticed yesterday. But Chris Jones had himself a game yesterday. Chris Jones is a machine. He's only got 6.5 sacks, but he had 3.5 yesterday. He came out to play. Frank Clark is a guy that can play when he wants to. He came across the edge, had an impact on this game. And when their defense starts to play, when you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Travis Kelce, just flat out, you have a chance to win every time you touch the field. That's just the way it works. You have the nucleus of a team that can win a championship. I would say the same thing about the Bucs. They've lost 2 in a row. We get to see them tonight in Monday Night Football. They still have that nucleus. And the Bucs are just like the Chiefs. They become the most dangerous team in football if their defense can get healthy. Can Sean Murphy-Bunting come back? Can you get Richard Sherman healthy? Can you get these guys back? Carlton Davis, who's their best corner? Shaq Barrett, can you play? Is Vita Vea going to be out for the season? Who's a beast in that middle of the defense going up against the center every snap? If that defense can come together, gel, like they did at the most important time last year from week 14 on, following their bye, then they're just as big as anybody else. I look at the Chiefs in the AFC and the Bucs. I said before the season, I said my head pick, the smart pick for me is a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. That's my prediction. My pipe dream one that I said, okay, maybe this will happen was Browns and Rams. The Browns look like an idiotic pick. Rams, who the hell knows? They're coming off 2 terrible losses. They head to Lambeau this week looking for some redemption. But for these 2 teams to get back to the Super Bowl, again, we are in week 11, heading into week 12. The Chiefs are heading into their bye week. They are starting to play elite football. Their offense still has to come. But if Mahomes continues to take his checkdowns, continues to go to Travis Kelce, who will scramble for first, find Tyreek Hill, who's so electric, get Mecole Hardman involved, and run the ball, continue to run the ball. Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, use Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman as, jet sweeps. That's how you're going to be effective. That's how you're going to win football games. And if the defense gels, if they start to play an elite level, if Frank Clark, if Chris Jones are a factor week in, week out, Tyrann Mathieu with Sean Fenton, and you're not a liability, but you become a strength because you gel, because you just have that chemistry, you feel good about yourself, that's how you're going to win. The Bucs defense won them a Super Bowl last year. Now, I look at the Chiefs. I don't think you need your defense to win you a Super Bowl, but you need them to help you win a Super Bowl. They don't need to be the most important factor because you have Patrick Mahomes. The Bucs needed it to be the most important factor because Tom Brady, although he plays at an elite level, is still 44 years old. He threw 3 interceptions in the NFC Championship game, but off those 3 interceptions, the Green Bay Packers came away with 3 points off those turnovers. That's a defense winning you a game. That's how it's done. And that, to me, the 2 teams in each conference, I think, are the most dangerous. Chiefs, Patriots in the AFC. NFC so wide open. I have so little of a feel for it. I can't put Minnesota in there because I don't trust them. I don't trust Kirk Cousins. I don't trust Zim. So no. To me, I would go Bucs still, and I'm sticking with the Rams because if their defense gels, if you can stop the run, if you look at that team, Aaron Donald's still the best player, still the best defensive player in football. Jalen Ramsey's the best cover corner. Cooper Kupp, you could argue, is the best receiver. Stafford is a top 10 quarterback. You have all the pieces to do it. And then you have the Bucs. You still have Tom Brady. Gronk's back tonight. Can your defense come back healthy? Don't turn the ball over. You're right there again. So as we head into week 12, the NFL, the narrative of the week, yes, we are still completely wide open. But the elite teams that I think had the ability to be the best, to be the most elite, will show themselves that they can get there over the last 5-6 weeks of this NFL season, or they'll show us that, you know what, they don't have it. And some other team that will show itself over the next 6 weeks as well, that comes out of the shadows, like an Indianapolis Colts, like potentially a Minnesota Vikings. Do we see a team go from the wild card game to the Super Bowl? The Bucs did it last year, but we'll have to wait and see how this all goes down. And I can't wait to watch it because I think it's going to be riveting. Bucs Giants tonight, and a great week 11. Again, so many interesting developments here, and I just think the NFL has been chaotic all year long, but that's the best NFL. When I'm like, I didn't see that coming. When I see Jalen Hurts becoming a number one quarterback, I love it. Athletic quarterbacks. You still have stationary quarterbacks that are playing great. You still teams winning based on defense and running the football. I thought that was dead. I thought the way I grew up watching football with my grandfather was dead. It's coming back. It's coming back because the teams that play defense, run the football, and get the play action game going win more often than they lose. Why did the Cleveland Browns go on a run last year? Because they had all those three elements. Why the Indianapolis Colts look like a team that could potentially sneak in and win the division against the Titans? Because they have those three elements down to a T. And we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks. But it's good to see how it goes. Bucs Giants, Monday Night Football. Rob Gronkowski looks like he's going to be a go for this game. Brady coming off a terrible loss last week to the Washington football team. We'll see how they react tonight. We'll break it all down tomorrow. We'll talk some hockey as well, NBA. We'll go through it all. But I hope you guys all had a great weekend. Johnny Penny, my friend, who's never been on the podcast, will join me later in the week. I'll be on with Seamus tomorrow as well. So lots happening as we head into American Thanksgiving. We'll talk football. We'll talk hockey. We'll go through it all this week as always. But thank you guys always for the support, for all, for the comments, everything that you guys do for the podcast. But until next time, take care, stay healthy. We'll talk soon.